Just as a reminder, folks may remember me. I'm Jim Fitzgerald. I'm a transportation planner with the BPDA. Typically, we also have my counterpart, the transportation department, Josh Whalen, to kind of get things started. He has a family issue that kind of came up last minute that he's got to deal with, so I'm going to pinch it for him and get things rolling here. I know that you have Connor back in the back room, northendwaterfront.com. He's going to be doing some filming of this. And then do we have any other members of the press in the room tonight that identify themselves? Or? Okay. I know that Rick Livingstone is here, so thank you for coming. We also have Kate Bell, Councilor Jacobs' office in the room. Any other electeds that I missed? Okay. So this is our fifth meeting. We were back last out in mid-November where we kind of had an open house format to start, and we had threw a whole bunch of improvement ideas at you guys for your reaction. We then followed that up with some online polling of these improvement alternative ideas that we presented. And so tonight we want to get into what we actually want to recommend in the plan, kind of near-term stuff, medium-term action items, and then even longer-term stuff. So we're going to walk through a whole bunch of ideas to get you guys' feedback and make sure we're going in the right direction. So like I said, we're going to do a little process overview, review of where we've been, what we've done so far, get into some of the action items that we're going to propose for the plan to try to get your feedback. And again, just for quick reference, I'm assuming most folks have been involved or been keeping track of this process, but just for a recap, the red line is basically our study area. And I kind of went over this a little bit, but we got things rolling over the summer. We kicked things off, and kind of right now we're in the phase of trying to develop and sort of synthesize and improve on some action items and the recommendations for the plan that we're going to present to you tonight. So again, based on your feedback from both that November meeting and the online polling, we're going to sort of recap that, and hopefully these action items are in line with what you guys want to see improved out there. This is also a recap slide of a lot that's going on here, both on the private development side and the infrastructure side. The purple is kind of public infrastructure projects that are either underway, nearing completion, or even some longer-term action items that are underway. And then the blue is kind of all the new development that's coming online. Also, just to recap, these are kind of the improvements on the transportation side that are already kind of happening related to development or public infrastructure projects. The purple are all the intersections that are going to get improved either through signalization improvements or timing or phasing improvements and traffic management improvements. The light blue is kind of all the public realm and sidewalk that will either get improved or new connections that are getting made. And I think we've said all along that the emphasis of this plan is to get to actionable items. I think most of our items are kind of on the short-term list, but then we also are going to move forward. We have scope and budget in this process to actually design anywhere from 1 to 3 immediate action items that we're hoping to get done, hopefully within the year, that we can start seeing some real improvements out there. Just again to recap, we have an interagency team that's been involved. We have Lauren Shurtleff is from BPDA, she's neighborhood planner. Maria Landcliffe from ONS. Bill Conroy is also from the Transportation Department. And then Public Works has also been coordinating directly with us. Kay Bernard-Smith actually fell ill and she's not here tonight either. But the consultant team, I think we hired, is led by Howard St. Hudson. Pete Stipman, who's the project manager for us, is going to take over now and sort of walk through all of our ideas for you to react to and give us your feedback on.
Thanks, Jim. And we also have with us tonight MBDJ, Manjay, and Chris Ehrlich up here in the front row. They're working on some of the urban design stuff for the project. We don't have Marlene with us tonight for the transit, but we can speak to a lot of that stuff. Just before we get started, an update. We're always trying to keep track of everything going on in the neighborhood, construction stuff. And we have a new date that we just got for the completion of the tunnel under the, from the North Station MBTA to the North Station. And that is November of 2018. So, good thing to think about as we look at all this stuff. So first I want to go through kind of the whole process that we've gone through so far together. And I want to thank all you guys who gave input. We've done it a lot of different ways. We'll go through it. We've got wiki maps, public meetings. We're actually out on the street here. We did design charrette type things. We did, big, large group discussions. So we've really tried to make sure that the action plan is rooted down in what you guys are telling us. And just to kind of recap that real quick, back in June we started out with a public meeting where we were really asking people about their ideas. This is just a smattering of the stuff we got. We heard about ADA issues, we heard about traffic issues, people trying to get places walking, all different stuff, and we used maps to collect a lot of that. And then we took it out on the road and actually went to different parts of the neighborhood strategically to figure out, we wanted to talk to transit users, we wanted to talk to people using the parking garage over here, we wanted to talk to people walking through the throw path and residents, we wanted to talk to people using the area for shopping, and also on Canal Street, which is a major thoroughfare for a lot of folks. So when we were out there, we also got tons of feedback. We had about, 9 or 10 of these maps full of comments, a lot of interesting conversations, and really enlightening stuff. And then we actually went further and took that onto Wikimap, which is as you guys probably will know by now, is a map where you can pin your comments by location. This is actually a map this isn't the Wikimap itself, it's a map of where the comments came from. So we got a lot of commuter comments, we also got a significant amount of comments from right here in the neighborhood. And this is the kind of categories we got back. We had a way to categorize those comments. So a lot of it was about congestion, traffic safety, dangerous intersections, another way to say traffic safety, I guess. But we also had speeding going on, a little bit about the neighborhood environment, and a lot of ideas as well. So we folded all that stuff in. And so then we ended up with this huge list of all these ideas. But out of it all, we picked out some themes. And we came back to you guys on September 7th last year and produced these shared goals and talked to you about them. Basically, the common themes were, and they're very interrelated, safety, trying to make the neighborhood more understandable, more immediately understandable, offering more choices for people, and a big one for a lot of people, less congestion. But like I said, all these are interrelated. So if you offer people more choices, maybe fewer people drive. If you offer a safer walking environment, maybe more people comfortable doing so. And of course, making the area more legible, for instance, for cyclists, may help people choose that mode more often. They're all really connected. And a concept that we introduced, I think it was in the November meeting, actually, we've been kind of talking about it in different ways all along, but we're in the middle of downtown Boston in this neighborhood. So while we do have a lot of traffic and a lot of growth and development and stuff, there's considerable problems coming from the traffic that's going on to the highway, for instance. There's a rush hour every day, people going back and forth from work. So there are some, and the city is an old city. Boston wasn't originally designed for cars, it was designed for horse and buggy and walking originally. So, while we think we can do a lot of improvements for local circulation, but we may not solve the bigger traffic problem. And so But one way, like we're not, to be more clear about that, the roadways have a certain capacity. And right now, most of our roadways in the neighborhood are pretty full during the peak hours. So we want to offer more choices as part of the plan so that maybe we can convince some of those people to get off the road, to make more room for people who need to use the road to get around. So by making other choices more attractive, we can make driving less necessary for some folks. And this is not a new idea. We've been talking about this a long time, but a lot of this talk has picked up more recently with the phenomenon of shared use vehicles. Not only the bike share that we see over here at North Station, but the Uber that's going around, and the zip cars that are parked nearby. And the city's Boston has been a leader in this area in a lot of ways. This actually comes out of the Shared Use Mobility Center. They recently discovered through a lot of interviews that they did, a very widely done survey, that the people who use all these different options are less likely to own cars. They're more likely to take transit. They're called super sharers. And so they're discovering that when we have a ton of options in the neighborhood to get around, the people who really take advantage of all of it start to drive less. And there's actually just another study that just came out in the last month about capital bike share in Washington, D.C. They're actually discovering that in the neighborhoods where they offer bike share, using INRIX data, which is kind of an industry standard for congestion and delay, they found that in those neighborhoods, there's been upwards of a 4% reduction in traffic congestion. So there's some indications out there that this works. You offer more choices for people. There's a certain percentage, not everybody, but there's a certain percentage of the population that will start using this stuff. So, also in September, a little later in September, we dug into all the stuff Jim was talking about earlier going on in the neighborhood, all the development and the infrastructure projects, and we really tried to detail that. Jim already showed you this, but this is all the dots, the blue and the purple, are actually all the intersections that are going to be retimed as part of the development that's going on. So there are some improvements coming already that we have not experienced yet. Some of the CHP intersections are starting to come online. And we also talked about the other things that all the developers are doing. This is a list of stuff that Jim put together, but we went over this in September. There's a lot of different things that the different developers have committed to improve the neighborhood. So again, back to so we have the existing project we were just talking about here. In November, we started to combine all this stuff. We had a huge list of ideas and problems from all of you, and we needed to get to some action items to choose from. So we described this process that we used to get there. Some of the projects were in other jurisdictions. We talked about some of the projects which just weren't feasible. We combined a lot of the different ideas and problems into projects that we could have a manageable group of projects for you guys to consider. We ended up, in the end, we also added a few things, maybe 6 or 7 projects based on emerging best practices around the country, stuff that's just new technology that's coming out now. In the end, we came out with 41 action items. And you guys, how many people were here last time? Okay, good. How many people have been to at least one of the meetings? All right, cool. So we've got a lot of people who know what's going on. So last time, in November, we got those 41 action items in front of you with descriptions and estimates as to their impact and all sorts of things. And took a temperature taking of how you guys felt about it. Everybody had thoughts. Everybody could contribute to what they thought was the most important thing for the neighborhood. We also then went back to the internet and did an online ranking as well, just to capture those folks who couldn't make it to the meeting, and also the bigger commuter network that we engaged on the street from before. So we used those emails that we gathered in those public pop-ups to re-engage those folks at this event. So this is what we got back. And again, I want to emphasize that this was not like a vote. So we're not, this is a temperature taking to figure out what's important to you guys. So tonight, when we start talking about the action plan, it's really, we're again taking that temperature from you and trying to understand what you approve, what you don't approve, etc. But this is what we got from the ways that we polled people before. So, motorized traffic, it was actually the most split of all the different areas that we polled people on. We had categories for motorized transit, etc. So this one, people picked 6 different things. The public meeting poll was actually the Madison Nashua Street intersection over here, right outside the window, was the most important to folks. And then also popular was don't block the box markings and signage. And the Bulfinch Triangle traffic circulation improvements. And then on the online poll, people, maybe because they like technology in general, the adaptive signal technology study won the day, and West End Signal Timing Improvement Project was number 2, and then engaging employers to form partnerships for transportation demand management was number 3. So as we'll see in a bit, I'm going to go through all the results we got, but we're also going to talk about the action plan. All 6 of these top items are addressed in the action plan. So for transit, the Lovejoy Warfare is very popular here at the meeting. Consolidation of the shuttles and the MTA routes is important. All that friction on Causeway that we heard about in the comments. The North Washington Street transit lane actually was popular in both the online poll and the public meeting poll. That's a bus lane that would come on this part of North Washington after you get off the bridge and go to Haymarket. So speed up that bus. And also airport shuttle from North Station and the bus priority lane connections from North Station to South Boston, South Station and South Boston was very popular online. And again, all of these are addressed in the long or short-term action plan. And then we have a little area for shared mobility. This is an emerging area, but we wanted to make sure we addressed it. So we talked about North Station mobility hub enhancements, which was to kind of make sure there's a lot of services and a lot of information about different ways you can get around at North Station to engage those transit users. So we're taking a piece of that into the action plan. And then for the pedestrian environment, actually even overall, Canal Street pedestrianization is one of the most popular ideas to make that more pedestrian friendly. Because we do see in our data that we've been gathering about pedestrian movements in the area, it does back that up. Right now, at peak hours, you get about roughly 2,000 people walking down the street every hour. And because of the way the construction is being built, it's going to emphasize that street even more. So we may see even a 50% or more increase in pedestrians there. So it's a good idea. And then Charles Circle pedestrian improvements. We've got a lot of complaints on this. Access to the T is a huge thing, and especially getting off the T at that back door. People get out there, especially if someone has an access issue, there's no way to get safely to the sidewalk on the other side of the street. So both of those are addressed in the action plan in different ways. And then we had a little placemaking section. And this really is geared, again, towards the pedestrians and making this a nice neighborhood to walk in. But the Bulfinch Triangle Tactical Urbanism Pilot got some love, some of these small sections, so we took a little piece of that and put it in the action plan. So the flex zone, the curb, basically, there was a lot of attention for the West End dynamic increased parking pricing pilot, which is actually, there's a pilot going on in the city already in Back Bay and also in the Seaport. There are different models in each neighborhood, and they're doing dynamic parking pricing. And so already the city has a plan to, if those pilots work out, look at other areas in the city where they could be implemented. So that is already kind of on the way, if it works out. And then the permanent shuttle stop map was another idea that got a lot of love. And this was an idea to organize the shuttles by requiring them to have a permit. And as part of that, getting that permit, they would have to give the city GPS tracking records so they you know where they stopped, where they went, and all that kind of thing, so you could better control the movements and keep them out of the way of the traffic and make sure that other issues can be dealt with. So both of those are addressed in the action plan. Bicycles, there was a clear winner in bicycles, Cambridge Street protected bike lane. And then we had this little differences about the American Congress Street protected bike lane and Old Masking Way and Asheville Street protected bike lane. I mean, there's a common theme here is people trying to get to the river, to the bridges. And so we address all these in either the long or the short-term action plan. All the top three. So to now that we've gone through the feedback, start taking a look at the action plan. And again, we want your feedback on this tonight. Towards the end of it, we're going to talk about 2 of the projects that we would design as part of this process. And so we want your feedback on those ideas. They're very initial, early concepts that we're just going to throw at you to get your comments back so we can improve them. But this is the entire action plan first. So, motorized traffic. And by the way, I don't know how many of you saw in the back of the room, we have a short-term and a long-term map that has all the projects on it. It's a lot of stuff, so that hopefully can make it easier for you to conceive of. But for the motorized traffic, on the map we have the Bulfinch Triangle curb use, the new traffic signal at Nashua, don't block the box signage, we'll talk about that in a minute, West End signal timing, and then getting local employers engaged in TDM, and the adaptive signal technology study. We'll go into some details on that in a minute. But these are all the metered parking spots in the neighborhood for that parking, what actually they call it in the other pilots, performance-based meter pricing. These are the areas that it would benefit. So just to preview a little bit, Bulfinch Triangle is one of the projects, and there's many aspects to it that are beneficial to pedestrians, but also car drivers and shuttle users. So we're going to talk about that after I talk about the entire action plan. So we just want to preview that. This is the existing circulation of how Bulfinch works today. And we definitely got a lot of comments about people having trouble navigating through it. So that's how it fits into the motorist section. Also, the Masning Nashua, this was a huge thing for a lot of people driving or thinking about driving. And so there's a lot of movement as part of the development going on and other discussions about reconfiguring this intersection. And we didn't show any concept because there's basically a lot of vision going on right now. And we want your feedback and ideas on that. So I mentioned don't block the box signage, not markings as we originally talked about. And this is because there's a process for getting don't block the box markings. What we can get right away, a short-term thing, is don't block the box signage, which looks like this in our state. There's a $150 fine associated with it. And right now, these are actually the actual real new BPD cadets that are just being sworn in around now. And each station gets one or two of them. And so what we've talked about with BPD is that they would, one of the priority areas for the new cadets would be to enforce these don't block the box regulations. And through the data that they collect out of that, then we can decide if markings are also required. So basically, as part of the action plan, we would start that process by adding the signage, and the rest of that would involve BPD. So another big idea is transportation demand management from the local employers. You guys have a lot of large property owners, a lot of large employers in the neighborhood, including TDM. And actually, we found a lot of examples in other cities where the sporting venues actually work with their fans in different ways to get them to take different ways to the event. There's even such a thing as, you know how they have ball night or bat night or whatever it is. Sometimes some of these places have actually given out a free transit ticket to get to the game. So there's a lot of different ideas for that, and that would be driven by the employers themselves. And the idea is that they would set their own goals and then report annually to the city on those goals. The West End signal retiming. So as we talked about earlier, almost every intersection in the neighborhood is being addressed through development in terms of retiming. So there's a lot of improvements coming, small improvements here and there, but they add up to something. And these are the two signals we identified. We got the most comments back on, complaints, both from the pedestrian and the motorized traffic. And so we got a lot of ideas from folks on how to time those a little better. And so that is included in the action plan. We've talked about the meters, but the reason that they do this is because it can help lower single occupancy vehicle use. So actually this is related to congestion. It also helps people find more traffic and more parking spots when they're looking for it, and they're willing to pay that extra price. So they have less circulation through the neighborhood with parking. So the adaptive signal technology study. So this is actually already underway as part of other development going on in the city. And you know, new adaptive signals would probably be related to new development. But adaptive signal technology can help shorten the peak period impacts by better managing signal timings before and after the heaviest traffic time. And I don't want to oversell it. It's not a magic bullet that's going to eliminate rush hour, but it can reduce delay in off-peak hours and overall reduce delay. And delay is a considerable cost for the city. It can also be very expensive, and it can be helpful during special events. Now, the special events here, we know, have police that come out and regulate all the traffic. So it's not necessarily helpful in that situation where the signals are not being used, but say you have a smaller event that causes a smaller type of disruption where they're not using all the police forces, they can adjust to that. Now we'll get into the transit stuff. So this is an overview of all of them. The bus lane, we're doing some stuff with shuttles that's related to the Bulfinch Triangle project again. North Station Airport Shuttle, and the interactive transit screens. That's the piece of that mobility hub idea that I was talking about earlier. I'll get to more about that.
Can I just ask you on that last
Yes.
point, what is the difference between a permanent shuttle stop and a permanent shuttle staging?
Yes, actually, good question. So she asked, what's the difference between permanent shuttle staging and permanent shuttle stop? So when we engaged with shuttle drivers and shuttle companies, we discovered that one of the problems they have is staging, which means waiting so that they could get on schedule. So right now on Causeway, or it used to be on Causeway, now it's on Able, you'll sometimes see a shuttle hanging back from the actual stop, just sitting there. And he's waiting, for 5:05 or whatever he's supposed to go back. So the staging area makes a formal area for that, so they're away from, Canal Street pedestrians and so that sort of thing. And all that stuff. So the North Washington Street bus lane, bus lanes have worked. Sometimes they're actually combined with bike infrastructure, as on Washington Street. So there are examples in the city of that helping out with the bus network. This is actually just thought of as the North Washington southbound, not both sides, but just southbound coming off the bridge. And then shuttle consolidation that I mentioned before. Shuttle consolidation, in addition to the thinking about the stops and permanent stops and stuff, the city really wants to encourage the companies to consolidate. So there's a lot of different corporations and whatnot that bring shuttles over from the Seaport. And there is an effort underway from the MCCA, or Signature Boston as it's now called, to consolidate those shuttles. They actually have 2 companies involved so far. But one of the thoughts is that through this shuttle permitting or the transit lanes and so forth, the city could have tools that can encourage consolidation, such as you need a permit, permits cost money, if you consolidate it would be cheaper, that sort of idea. So when we get to the Bulfinch Triangle project, we'll talk a little bit more about the shuttle stop location, the concept for that. But the permitting idea, again, I already actually previewed this slide, but again, it's the idea of having a cost for each stop so that it would allow the city to have people who manage the shuttle situation. And of course, this broader shuttle consolidation idea works really great for Easy Ride. Imagine if every one of those little letters was a different kind of shuttle coming from Cambridge. The Easy Ride consolidates it all into one, and they deliver over on the National Street side of North Station. And we didn't get any complaints about Easy Ride. Another short-term thing, and I should say the short-term projects, the time window is 1 to 5 years. A lot of them are on the sooner side, but it is a wide spectrum there. So the MBTA ferry, and I don't say that just for the ferry. The ferry is imminent, but the Lovejoy Wharf ferry is part of the short-term plan. And these are just a fake mock-up of what a transit screen might look like. There's a lot of different companies that are getting engaged in this work, so it could be any of them. And basically it would allow people to do trip planning on a large interactive screen, so they could figure out how to get different places without driving. And then the North Station Airport Shuttle. So when we reached out to Massport to talk about the airport shuttle, it actually turned out that they had been thinking that would be a good idea for quite some time, because they had taken, in order to do their Back Bay Airport shuttle, they had done a lot of surveys about ridership. They have an enormous ability to do surveys with their passengers. Also, they have 15,000 employees and whatnot, so they have a good idea of what people want out there. Back Bay was number 1, but number 2 and number 3 were Kendall Square and North Station. So this is a very viable idea in the mind of Westport. It's not currently on their to-do list, but I think this is part of the action plan. We're including it in there as a priority for the city. So short-term pedestrian environment. We talked a little bit about the Untitled Chapter pilot, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the Bulfinch Triangle Park, which is like a little piece of that. Open Canal Street is an idea of kind of like open Newberry Street. Anybody see that this summer, last year actually? They closed down the street to traffic and allowed pedestrians to roam all over it. So it's just a one-day event, but it might be a way to experiment in the Bulfinch Triangle. And so we're also talking about pedestrian priority evolution on Canal Street. So evolution meaning let's experiment, let's try different things. Right now, the Public Works Department envisions long-term doing some work over there, just reconstruction work. But that's a ways off, so we have some time to think about what we want there. So we can try different things on that street, and we'll talk more about that. Pedestrian wayfinding, this is something that would be related to development. You basically put pedestrian wayfinding kiosks at all the exits. Again, we have that Lomazzi-Nashua intersection that we talked about. Charles Circle pedestrian improvements. It's previewed here, but we're going to talk more about it when we get to the concept. This is the other concept that we designed as part of this actual plan right here. And the West End signal will be time really well. So here's just a little preview of that Bulfinch Triangle idea. This is repeated, but this is St. Catherine Street in Montreal. Really wonderful place to walk. They started out using these temporary parklets, if you will, or actually it's a way for the restaurants to serve a few more people. And this is what they envision for the future of St. Catherine Street as a result of trying these different experiments on the street. And but there's a lot of different ways that cities have been experimenting with pedestrians sharing the street with vehicles. And this is Bell Street in Seattle. As you can see, it still has parking. So it's not completely a pedestrian street, but the nature of it means that cars really slow down. And so a pedestrian can feel comfortable walking a long diagonal arc across the street rather than hurrying across it, as they might today. West End single timing, showing this slide. It tells a repeated pedestrian because it has benefits. So for bicycles, we talked about the Madison Street Nashua protected bike lane. This is, and we also talked about this intersection, which we don't, there's a lot of visioning going on around the intersection. We don't know exactly how this will come through there. But there is room on Nashua Street, and there's some visioning for different ways to work it on the Madison Way to get protected bike lane that would reach from the connects historic Boston cycle track, which goes from here in Sanford all the way over around the north end back to Atlantic and the Lewis Canyon Greenway. So it would be a significant connection of all that territory over to the river where you can access Cambridge in different ways, including in the future the MBTA drawbridge right here, which will be a big improvement as well. That project is underway. So also, one where there's a lot of room on the street is Blossom Street. So I think this is probably more focused for people at MGH. And also, it would have some safety improvements on that street, because currently, it's not marked for 4 lanes on the entire street. It's marked in some places. But there's a lot of friction and sort of disorganization on the street. and there isn't a need for all those lanes. So by adding a bike lane, you'd actually create a safety element for the pedestrians by making it a little less confusing and more understandable. So here's just another image of the rising natural bikeway on the satellite. But to go back over, relating this back to the action items, the 41 action items that we saw last time in November, we're actually addressing 11 of these top-ranked action items in the short term and partially addressing 6 more. So roughly a third of the action items are touched. And then we also have the long term. So it's just a few projects on here now. But we talked about Canal Street coming up for reconstruction at some point in the future. And those evolutionary ideas that we're experimenting with contributing to that. A lot of call, one of the most popular items on the transit menu was the bus parade lane between North and South Station and actually South Boston beyond that. Currently there's not a concept for that, but there's a lot of momentum behind that in the city. So we wanted to include that in a long-term action item. And then the Cambridge Street protected bike lane. Now I know this is the top issue for bicycles, and we poured over the plans for Cambridge Street. And the way the street's currently configured, it would require reconstruction in order to fit in even a bike lane. The median there takes up a significant amount of space. So there had to be some thinking about trade-offs on that street. So it would be a longer design process. Very important to the city though, it's being called out and Go Boston 2030 as part of that. So there's a lot of recognition that that's a priority. And also that shuttle consolidation that's going on at Signature Boston. So this is a little mixed up because we moved some things over to the short term. So I can't really give you a good count on that, but there's more of these in there. I apologize. No mistake. Essentially, I think around half of the action items of the 41 are included in the action plan in some way or form. So now we're going to talk about the immediate designs. What time are we at now? 7:26? Okay, I suggest we go through these and then have discussion after that. Are we cool with that? So here's the Bulfinch triangle. Now when we started looking at this, there's a lot of different comments that played into it. I just want to illustrate that. So we got a lot of comments here at the public meeting about the Bulfinch traffic circulation being difficult. So we knew we had to make it easier to navigate by car. The canal foot traffic, as I mentioned, was going to go up by 50% or more, so we knew we wanted to make canal more pedestrian oriented. We also knew the shuttles were causing congestion, a lot of complaints for the shuttles being on causeway and causing friction. So we knew we wanted to put them in a nice place off Causeway Street. Saying a nice place because we want people to use shuttles. We want people not to choose to drive. So, but we also had some limitations. While we wanted to make it easy to get through and access neighborhood stuff, we didn't want cut-throughs to the highway. So we wanted to prevent certain moves. Also, on Canal Street, there's truck delivery. There's actually a private parking lot in the middle of it, a paid parking lot. And there's some other things that need car access. So we wanted to design a shared street, not a strictly pedestrian street, but something that could be used by all people, but just have more priority for pedestrians. And we wanted to Also make sure the shuttle stays speedy because we want to help keep cars off the road. We want that to be a convenient option for people. So we want to make the circulation simple. So here again is the existing circulation of Bulfinch Triangle. Note that Valenti Way points towards Canal Street. So in some ways, if you go out there and observe it now, you'll see a decent amount of traffic. It's not heavy traffic, but there's a steady stream of cars turning right off of Canal Street, even with the left taken away now. So we had two ideas, just to start off the conversation. These are concepts, we're here to talk to you about it. So one idea was to do that Canal Street, shared street treatment, some evolution ideas, and to make Valenti two-way for part of the street. And that would give people different options to access Front Street and other things along here. We didn't want to take that two-way all the way to the end, because then people might use it to get on 983. And that's the same, similar reason we didn't want people taking the opposite cut through, so we closed the median on Merrimack Street to prevent people taking a left. And then this Medford Street change is actually already scheduled to take a little pressure off King Square. But we thought that it may be helpful to do the same kind of deal over here on Lancaster Street to take a little pressure off Lowell Square. So those are improvements to those operations in the intersection. Another idea was to do the same shared street on Canal Street idea, the same changes at Medford and Lancaster, but to draw people towards Portland Street. There's only two streets that allow lefts off into Causeway Street, Haverhill and Portland Street. So Haverhill, because of the pedestrian bridge today, a lot of pedestrians are crossing over here. So the idea was to emphasize Portland Street as a safer place for people to be taking those lefts. Those are two ideas. Talking about the shuttle stops, we actually looked at the different shuttles that are using the area. We have the MGH shuttle coming through here, then going over to Charlestown, and then coming back through here, and then going back to MGH. And I should mention, I think we talked about it before, but the stop would be here, staging area here. And the reason that we think about Canal Street as a place for shuttles is because on Canal Street you have a lot of services for people. You have all the restaurants, you have a cafe right here, there's some storefronts that have yet to be filled along here. Basically you're providing a lot of customers for your local businesses, so that gives, over time, you guys more options, places to shop, because these shop owners can survive better. But also to continue the shuttles, so that some of the Seaport shuttles come off of Commercial Street, so they would come in this direction, and maybe down the same way. Some of the shuttles come up Congress Street, so they would turn in here, and then leave down Congress Street that way. Now the shuttles from Cambridge all come over here. We didn't depict that, but that's well organized and wasn't an issue. So another thing that we would be talking about as part of this is a reimagining of the curb space. So right now on Canal Street we have a lot of metered parking, and this graphic actually needs some updating. There's some changes here. And then we have commercial parking right here on Valenti. If we made that two-way, for instance, we'd have to relocate that commercial parking to some place where it would be out of the way. But that's the only Valenti Street parking change. But then, you know, the question of what to do with the other spaces that are available, you know, we could look at that as well to balance some of this. And we could also leave some parking spaces on Canal, as we saw on Bell Street in Seattle. So it's not a wholesale ripping of parking spaces, it's a rethinking of the area. Just to introduce a couple of examples, this is 16th Street Mall in Denver. I'm very familiar with this, I'm from Denver actually. And this works really well. This is, of course, not what we do in the short term, but something that maybe after we start experimenting with things, you can conceive of in the long term. There are ways to make shuttles behave. We've already seen this, but that's more examples of evolution. So we actually took a look at this on Canal Street with our friends MBJ, and thought about what some of the experiments, not the permanent changes, but the experiments might look like as we mess around with things. So you could have a mix of commercial parking and the shuttle stop over here. We even talk about bike parking if that's a demand. But there's also space on the sidewalk on this street. And then there's, you could add for the cafe, a place for customers, or from some of the restaurants, a place for customers. And you could have also some limited parking, or insert your idea here. Curb space can be used for a lot of different things to meet the different needs of the neighborhood. And that is really where we need you guys, we need the Downtown North, and other participants, the local businesses, to let us know. So this is definitely a conversation. And as I mentioned, another idea would be to do this pedestrian only for a day, just to give people a flavor. So we'll move on to Charles Circle, and then we'll talk about both options in the action plan. So these are the Longfellow plans. This is what's under construction today. So we based some of our thoughts about Charles Circle on these plans. There are also some talk in other areas, like Mass Pioneers looking at a store driving alignment. There's some ideas on that. But we just thought about, you know, the complaints we were hearing. One of the complaints we were hearing was that bicycles have a really tough time navigating this area. It's very hard to understand. And they're all trying to get to Longfellow Bridge, because it's the only way to get across the river. Or a lot of them are. And so we thought about this, you know, like we mentioned before, Cambridge Street, it's a little too tight to put bike lanes on, but we could start to provide something just into Charles Circle. So this would be, this is obviously an early draft concept of a protected corner. So bicycles could come up here and wait outside of traffic and wait for a signal that would safely tell them when to get across on the right. Similarly, coming the other way, this is an existing bike lane that's in this Longfellow plan already, as is this section of these striping plans up here. This is already going to be there. It's this part that's not. So here, we thought, okay, well, you know, there's some cyclists that come zipping through here and wouldn't mind at all merging in this crazy merge over here. But there's also a lot of families and other people that are using the Charles River as a recreational place and accessing the neighborhood graphs. So we provide a way for them to cut right here and get into a bike box, which would be a little wider than this in the actuality. But then we queue them up on a signal, a safe signal, to get across here into a bike lane and then to continue up Cambridge Street. They could also take a right on Charles Street, which is the safer way if they're going, say, to Boston Common or something. So those are the bike improvements. And then Another set of complaints we heard were from pedestrians, and this is actually louder in Boise than here. People have so much trouble accessing the Charles MJ station, and in particular, accessing it when they come out. Just a lot of people talking about when they come out over here, there's no way to get anywhere. And that's actually a design flaw in the station. The doors there, the first thing you see when you come down the stairs, they're actually meant to be an emergency exit, not a real exit. When people go out of them, they can't keep the doors closed because it's an emergency exit, you gotta keep them open. So basically we would create a little bump out here and another crossing that would be timed with this intersection, with this signalized crossing, so that this would turn red a little bit before this one, so the cars could somewhat clear out, even if a few cars got trapped in here, it'd be okay. And people could cross. Over here, we expand the sidewalk just enough so that someone in a wheelchair or someone walking could walk over here and access this side of the street. So that's the basic Charles Circle. Just a close-up of the bike right here, and a close-up of the rest of this stuff. And that's essentially the action plan. There are two concepts. Now we'll take comments from you guys and start a discussion on both on the entire action plan. Is it enough? Is there something in there that's missing that we really need to have? Concepts behind it, but also those, our next bit of work is to work on those concepts and to improve them. So if you have comments about those, we want to hear those too. Anyone? Perfect.
So on the first plan, my name's Christine Savage, I live at Strata building on Market Street.
I'm just going to give people like, sorry. You're trying to
Hi, my name is Christine Savage. I live at Strata 234 on Causeway Street. So the first plan that you showed in terms of the reconfiguration of the traffic in the Bulfinch Triangle creates some unique challenges for people in our building. And for others that are within the next year going to be moving into the parcel 1B, 1C project that will dump cars out onto Beverly Street in between Causeway and Valenti. So that particular development has a parking garage of about 265 spaces for the hotel and residential that will be dumping out onto Beverly Street and heading south. We have about 75 or 80 cars that park in our building that are residential. There's also commercial space, and you've got people 100+ unit building that while there's no parking there, they will have deliveries, moving people, Ubers, etc. coming in and out of there. The reversal of Medford Street creates an issue for any number of us trying to commute back to our building at peak times. We're precluded from taking a left turn onto Causeway from North Washington Street during peak hours. There's not a left turn signal there, which if there were a way to do that would be a huge relief and benefit for us. And I know that intersection is being restructured in the next year. That might eliminate some of the problem. The problem we currently face, particularly with TD Garden events, is that we're forced to turn onto Valenti Way and then come north on either Haverhill or Canal. So if Canal becomes more pedestrianized, fine if it's slower, people will then default to Haverhill Street. If Haverhill becomes the haven for shuttle staging, that's going to cause backups because everyone trying to get over towards our building is going to get pushed onto Haverhill to get north. So we lose Medford, we lose some mobility on Canal, it's going to push everybody on to Haverhill. And we've also, in the last few months, BPD has taken the approach of, in order to get everyone out from an event, that they're now blocking other avenues for us to get home. So Monday, for example, there was an afternoon Bruins game, and they parked at BPD SUV blocking off the westbound lanes of Causeway at Kearney Square. So if you could not turn right from the Charlestown Bridge, you could not proceed straight on Commercial. You're in a window where you could also not turn left from North Washington. So literally the only way to get home, unless driving all the way around and cutting down, Stanford Street, is to go Valenti and up April, which is
Wait, and now,
limiting our traffic flow rather than enhancing it.
let me draw that out a little more, because we have heard complaints about Haverhill and the shuttles conflicting with, there's a garage actually there too.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes I see shuttle buses on both sides, and if it's during a rush hour pregame type period, as many pedestrians as there are on Canal, there's a roughly equal number that are on Haverhill, because that's where the entrance to the T station is for those people. So if they're getting on the T there, they're proceeding, and they end up, because there are traffic cops there directing pedestrians, they feel that they don't need to actually be on a sidewalk. So you will get a right turn green light, and maybe 1 or 2 cars per signal can actually turn right.
Because of all the confusion.
They're all confused, and no one's standing where they're supposed to. You've got shuttles on both sides. People are forced into the middle of the lane. So I'm concerned about this proposal in that it's further cutting off another route for us to get home, maybe 1.5 routes.
So today, Canal Street is the preferred.
I think Canal tends to be the default because there are multiple ways to get to it. If it's to get to Haverhill and Valenti isn't two-way that far down, people are going to default into, coming through, around the north end. They're going to get caught in that, right now Valenti is 3 lanes in that short block, with 2 of those lanes turning left for people to get on 93, and there's a 3rd lane, and that's the lane we need to get to either Haverhill or Canal. I know at some point there had been some discussion about eliminating that 3rd lane and turning it into, either a drop-off pickup zone, maybe some meters. We would have obviously more significant concerns if that were part of the plan. I don't see it here. Happy not to see it.
Okay, so, yeah, just one comment on that. So the idea, we heard those complaints in Haverhill, that's why we thought of moving the shuttles to Canal and making Haverhill the more favorable choice for your local circulation. Under the 2-way option, get back to that, and actually both of these. So even under the Portland option, you'd be able to access also Portland. So you'd have Haverhill and Portland.
And then we have to wait through 3 sets of traffic cops to tell us to stop or go.
Right, now they event things in a
Which I think is
whole
what
other-
they don't want. They want that middle section to be pedestrian friendly and keep the cars on the fringe.
Right, and that's another issue actually I heard from earlier today. Someone was talking about during events, the difficulty of accessing your building in particular.
Yeah,
So that's,
there are times where they won't let us.
That's
So
a good
there are
call.
parents with children who've been told, drive around the block, honey, for 45 minutes, which is not okay.
right, so we definitely need to hear that comment and others like it. Go this way here, and then we'll start moving back and come back over here.
So my name is Yolanda Hagman, also at 234 Strada. I wanted to emphasise what Christine was saying about the access to our building from the North Washington area during events. You're saying to us this is not really a popularity contest. What would be short-term and long-term solutions to some of the mobility problems? But we are a small community, so we're not getting top of the list on some of the things that are really important to us. Low-hanging fruit, give us resident stickers, police officers can see them, they can then allow us to access our building. We are affected 6 times a week during the busy season.
Excellent, thank you. We'll just kind of go back that way.
Hi, my name is Andy Monat. I'm a regular commuter into North Station. I'm one of those people in the crowd who's trying to cross Causeway Street there near Haverhill. And I'm also on the board of Transit Matters, which works for better transit through the area. So overall, it looks like there's a lot of good stuff in this plan. Hard to get through all of those things, but clearly for cyclists getting towards having a family-friendly ages 8 to 80 bike network is pretty important. Charles Circle, obviously Cambridge Street, some of the other ones. One other thing I'd like to mention, I'm blanking on the name of the street, coming down the hill towards Haymarket, just recently there was an elderly person hit by a car who was, I think, not seriously injured. That's one of those spots which I marked on the map months ago. It's one of these things where we give him 95% of space to cars just past the police station headed down the hill towards Haymarket. And it's one of those places that is dangerous, and lo and behold, an old person was, almost killed there in the last month or two. It shows how serious the issues we're dealing with here are. The ferry thing is interesting. Maybe that will happen. Shuttle consolidation seems like a good idea. In general, lots of good stuff in here. I would encourage even more space for bus priority lanes. We've got, some of these streets are very wide, we've got a lot of space in them.
Any particular bus priority lane that you're...
There's a huge volume of certainly people on shuttles going down Causeway. I would, this is clearly beyond the scope of this plan, but when you do these employer shuttles rather than public transit, then you end up with only the people who have the right kinds of jobs can access that transportation. Whereas people who work at, the convenience stores or the restaurants in the Seaport probably do not have access to those shuttle facilities. In the long run, getting the MBTA to run the service rather than a bunch of private shuttles and having employers, subsidize or pay for transit passes probably would do as much or more and provide better access to other people.
Yes, and one of the hidden benefits that we didn't talk about consolidation can be public access to those shuttles. Easy Ride, for instance, a lot of people don't know this, but if you use that fancy transit app we were talking about, and you're sitting at the North Station, you can see Easy Ride pop up as an option to get to Cambridge. So it's another way of tying things together.
Yeah, and one thing I'd add with that is you mentioned something about GPS tracking for shuttles. So if you did that, I would encourage them to make the GPS information publicly available so people can look those up on maps and websites.
Some of them are already available. If you go, search Transloc, it's one of the GPS tracking services that some of the shuttle companies use. So we got some information.
Thank you.
My name is Ken Sebesta, and I live upstairs from here. I'm also a director on the board of directors for this building. I see things here that I like and applaud you for, but overall I'm disappointed. When I look at this list, I see that this is a positive green love fest for cars, for moving them faster through the city. But when it comes to things like bicycles, we see a couple short-term plans, one that nobody even particularly wanted as priority, Boston Street. But nothing short-term that really matters. I see taking away pedestrian space, medians, such as we've done on Stanford Street, where it's now difficult to cross because there's a 4-lane highway, but before there was a median that pedestrians could use. We're talking about making the same mistake on Cambridge Street. I don't want to see pedestrians and cyclists have to fight over the same spot when there are cars parked on the edge, which have little value, and are moving few people. When 25 or maybe 50 people come down Lamasny Way, and they block traffic all the way back to Storrow Drive, because that is literally a football field's worth of cars, and that only moves 50 people. When they're given priority over the cyclists or the pedestrians, this is a problem. I admire the fact that we want to make cycling easier, but we want to make walking easier, but this isn't what works. In the 70s, there was a question. We didn't have good data. Certain cities around the world embarked to try something new. Now it's 2017, and we're scientists, I'm an engineer, you guys are engineers, we understand what induced demand is, we understand how to read papers. We do not need to reinvent the wheel here, we just need to be brave. We need to be brave enough to do what the data tells us we need to do. When the mayor says that he's going to invest $2 million in moving cars through the city faster, which means harder for pedestrians to cross, harder for the old people, for the elderly, and says, you understand what it's like to be stuck in traffic. Well, 36% of residents in the city don't own a car. So no, we don't understand. We don't understand why there's less than $1 million devoted to bicycles across the city, but there's more than $2 million devoted to cars. When I live in a building where we have a bike room, and in that bike room, I did a study, and in 3 months, only 3 bikes had moved. Over half the bikes in the bike room have flat tires. There's also a garage in this building. Far more than 3 cars a day move out of that garage. Probably closer to 80% of the cars do. So it's not a question of making it easier for cyclists and pedestrians. It's a question of understanding that a city is a place where people live. A parking lot is for cars. I live in a city. I want my environment to look like this. And I encourage us engineers to make sure that as civil servants, we understand what our goal is and what our desire is, and we communicate that to our superiors and to elected officials in the room. We will stand by you. We're desperate right now for something to believe in. This city and this state did not vote for the future politics. While I don't want to bring that too much into this discussion, I do want to say that we will have your backs. We want this world to be better. We can look at other cities. We might be the best city in America, but we've got a way to go before the best city in the world for people to live here. So I truly encourage you to rethink the focus that you have made on cars and the high priority that's been given to making cars move to the city quickly and efficiently for the driver, but slowly for the pedestrians, slowly for the cyclists, dangerous, pollution levels go up. These things are not what we want to be a city. Again, I'll reiterate, pedestrians and cyclists make a city. Cars make a parking lot. Truly consider which one you want to live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Definitely.
My name is John Kuiper from the Massachusetts Sierra Club. I unfortunately missed the meeting 2 months ago. I did participate in the online survey, and I was a little disappointed in the transit section that there was no mention whatsoever of the proposed rail connection between North Station and South Station, which I know this is beyond the purview of this study, the direct purview. It's an issue that will be decided at the state and federal levels. However, I think there does need to be an acknowledgement of some sort that the north-south rail link would have a significant impact upon this neighborhood, hopefully for the better. It would reduce the need for commuters to transfer at North Station, and thereby, I suspect, obviating the need for any of the shuttles which now clog the streets of this neighborhood. So it is definitely something that should have been acknowledged in the course of the study.
Certainly, that's one of the, when you give public comments like that, those are the kinds of things we do note in the study as projects that the neighborhood is very supportive of. And there's a lot of them that are already under discussion, such as Soundbike Bridge is another example. A little more solidity to that one, but we are noting when the neighborhood supports the existing projects as well as the ones here in the action plan. So thank you for that.
Well, first, thanks for doing this, and there's a lot of detail there. When are you going to put this online?
Absolutely, yes. Can't say exactly when, but soon. Within a week. Thank you.
For one of the projects, the bike lane on Lawson Street, if the Mass Linear project goes forward, some of the diversion may put a lot of volume of cars on Lawson Street.
Interesting.
And so I would talk to MassDOT before taking any further step with that.
Actually, the short term is all split up.
What's that?
The short term options are all split up. Do you remember what category you were in? Good point.
No, sorry. Yeah, I guess overall, I'm pleased that this is happening. As some of the people said, the people in this neighborhood are doing this, use bicycles and especially walking to a much greater degree. And the more you can encourage that in the plan, the better. The question I had was, all these have been public meetings, and you've been clear about the area you're covering. If you're making changes to Charles Circle, you're also going to have a public meeting on DDM.
Yeah, excellent point. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Doreen. I also live at 234 Causeway Street, and I've been living here about 7 years. Prior to that, in the Back Bay. And I haven't owned a car since 1990, so I'm very much appreciate, what you're doing for pedestrians and making it fewer cars in the city. But my question has to do with the fact that, as frenetic it is to get to the T, once you get in there, there's, I fortunately have flex time at my job, so I leave around 10, and still at that point, sometimes I can't even get on a train. And of course, when the weather's bad, more people are taking the train, and there was even a few years ago where they had to have armed police because there were physical altercations. So I guess my question is how is the MBTA collaborating with you? And the objective is to have fewer cars, but we're going to have employees and more commuters. What are they doing to improve the number of trains available for the commuters?
Yeah, good. Yeah. So actually, you're in luck. The MTA has ordered, I can't remember the exact number, but a large number of new cars for the orange line and the red line, which are going to help make more frequent service in the rush hours of the future. I think the first cars start arriving in 2018, and so the service will improve from then on. And so, yeah, and that'll improve your overcrowding situations. Earlier in the study, if you look back, I think it was on September 20th, or perhaps the November meeting, we did have some graphs showing the before and after capacity of the trains after these cars arrive. And it showed that there were still some crowded times, but that it would be able to handle the increase in ridership that's predicted based on the Central Transportation Planning staff did a study of the core capacity of the system, and envisioning all the new development and new people that are moving into the city and the neighborhoods around the city. So it's going to keep getting better.
I'm Rosalie Nesbitt. I live in Beacon Hill, but I just wanted to mention to the people who live at 234, if you have problems getting into your building and there's a problem with how the police direct traffic, you can come to a community meeting every second Tuesday at 6 p.m. and you can speak to the captain there. And he can maybe take your input, and that's open to everybody. And see me for details if you want more information.
Hi, I live right here on Monte Road, and at 65 Monte Road, there are a number of elderly people. Monte Road is backed up, of course, during the events, and it is backed up even when there aren't any events. Ambulances go in and out of that building almost every day. And sometimes they can't move, sometimes they cannot get in. I haven't seen anything in your study except for the signal timing at Leverett Circle. And I'm not even sure how well that is going to work, because I think it's working quite well right now. And I don't know what kind of glitches you're going to make to the circle to make it better, so that traffic, I'm not really sure how to do anything, and also in the square. So we're right in between Leverett Circle and the square.
Well, just a couple of small notes on that to get to that question. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of different ideas going on around this intersection. There's definitely an idea to install a signal here for both directions of traffic. So that could help them manage the situation, including with the new development that's coming in regarding garage. So there's some thought towards that congestion there. And the process needs to go forward for really to start having that conversation about the kinds of improvements that we can see there, but we do see opportunities for improvements there as part of that project. And then over on the Bulfinch side of things, I think we actually the preview here. We talked about the directional change of Medford Street. Of course, we heard some problems that might cause as well, but the idea would be to take a little pressure off of Keeney Square. It's a small thing. Keeney Square is very constrained, so there are some issues that will remain and will always remain. And additionally, this signal is being retimed as part of the North Washington Bridge project, and we know it's part of the CHP project. So there are some improvements in operations that would come out of that as well. But admittedly, these are, we're in downtown, and congestion is going to happen.
I actually live in Kings Square, and then the intersection by Causeway.
Lowell Square?
Stanford Street.
Here.
And Merrimack.
I don't know if we've turned that one on yet. Is there? And yeah, there are some signal timing changes basically underway right now. You can see the new signals are out there and operational, but the new timing may or may not be. We're dealing with that in a different project, different staff, so we don't know right now, but it is coming online soon if it's not up there already. So there are some small improvements coming to Lowell Square. Not to say that it eliminates your problem, but that we are aware of it and that we're doing what we can given the constraints of the street.
Hi, I'm Andrew from the town. I'm with the Livable Streets Alliance Advocacy Committee. I want to thank you for a lot of great improvements in this plan, especially your attempt to follow the mode shift goal. One thing we haven't heard a lot about that was one of the original goals was improving safety, and I want to encourage you to continue to follow the city's commitment to Vision Zero, ending traffic deaths, and really look at how you can slow traffic speeds to a manageable speed, not to mean that they can't move through the city at all, but the cars are traveling at the city's new speed limit of 25 miles an hour, that pedestrians and bicyclists have safe routes and safe places to cross the street. A few details on a few of the specific projects. Really excited about the Canal Street pedestrianization, the Lemassing Nashua Street bike path, and especially the North Washington Street bus priority lanes, which will have a great impact on a lot of the people who are commuting in and out of Haymarket. I have one question. If you could go to I think it was the second to last slide of Charles Circle. It's great that you're providing a crosswalk for people coming out of the back of the station to the north side of Cambridge Street. Is there a reason you can't do the same thing on the south side for people?
Actually, what I was talking about is that, see this little strip of yellow here? So when people are coming out these back doors, which is one of the main issues, under this plan, they would have a little bit wider sidewalk there. Currently, you can't make it through past these little bollards on a wheelchair. I mean, you could dance through there walking, but we would widen the sidewalk there so that you could access this crosswalk over here.
Just seems like a lot of people, if they're heading down, what's the street that goes south? West Cedar, or if they're heading to somewhere on the south side of Cambridge Street, they're just going to walk across the intersection the same way they do right now, and jaywalk through that intersection. So if you can look at putting a crosswalk across there.
In this area?
Yeah.
It's a good comment, thank you.
On the dynamic parking pilot, we think that's really great. It will help free up spots so that people who need to find a street parking spot can find one without circling the block a million times. we'd urge you to look at the Seaport model rather than the Back Bay model that adjusts, the Seaport model adjusts pricing on a monthly basis and by hour, so that perhaps there can be higher pricing during events at TD Garden to encourage people who are here for an event to use a garage or other or cheaper parking at times when there's not as much activity. And then finally, Cambridge Street, it's great to see that this is in the city's plans, but it's been in the city's plans as a protected bike lane for years. We haven't seen any movement towards it happening. It's one of the more dangerous streets and most high demand streets in the city. I'd like to see a commitment from the city to actually beginning the process of fully reconstructing the street, if that's what it takes to make any safety improvements to Cambridge Street. The city should start designing the project and start working to secure funding immediately.
Thank you.
Well, my name is John Reynolds. I'm glad you brought up Cambridge Street last because that's what I wanted to bring up first. It's actually the only reason why I started coming to this meeting. I mean, I care about all the other improvements, I really do. Some of them are really great, especially the Canal Street part, but I started coming to these meetings because Cambridge Street. I work in an architecture firm downtown. There's 40 people there, and 10 of us ride every day. It's a significant portion of our office rides over the Longfellow Bridge and then comes into downtown, and they come via Cambridge Street. And I don't know a single person who rides a bike that does not have a near miss on Cambridge Street. It's a deadly street. It's on under Wiki Maps. It's one of the highest requested areas outside of just this meeting. This project area. City of Boston has had Wiki Maps up asking for traffic improvements citywide. And this is needs to belong to the short term. I know it's not a very old street. It was probably rebuilt in the 90s. It certainly looks like that. Sometimes you just got to do it over. You got to do it right. I mean, we have Vision Zero in Boston, so when somebody gets seriously injured or killed, that automatically triggers immediate safety improvements to be made. So why wait? We're going to have someone die on this road. It's probably going to be another doctor. We had, on Mass Ave, which is why we have protected bike lanes on Mass Ave. Why wait for a loss of life to make that happen? Why not just do it right, do it as part of this study, and save a human being, and get what was going to be in the long-term goal anyway?
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
I just want to chime in a little bit here. I mean, it's not long-term because it's not important. We agree with you, it's very important. And we are starting to explore opportunities for making improvements on Cambridge Street. It would take a long term to completely reconstruct the street. I think it's more how it kind of fell into that world, or that world, in that bucket, is that, again, as you mentioned, we did just spend a lot of money reconstructing it. I have to agree that probably the wrong decisions were made looking back on it. But I assure you that inside City Hall, we agree that it's a priority to make improvements. It's just going to take some time and obviously some serious capital investment. So it's more of that reasoning, but I don't want you to think we're not thinking about it already, because we are.
Just a quick follow-up on that. The capital investment part is kind of chased me a little bit because the amount of money we spend on other modes of transportation that are often deemed more important. Just open up the purse strings and do it now. I don't know another way to say it. It's going to kill someone unless you do something now. And it doesn't have to be a full reconfiguration. I disagree with that. I think you can take away parking. It would be a lot less expensive. Maybe politically less, a challenge. But a handful of parking spaces over human life. I mean, it's one of the most traveled streets. I'm repeating myself, so I'm going to stop it. But it really needs to happen sooner.
I mean, I agree with Jim and what he's saying. When you go through a large capital investment process, there would be, state funding, narrow, long processes when you go through that construction. I think that's what Jim was referring to. It's not as simple as removing parking, because if you look at the street, there's bump outs and there's utilities in those bump outs. So if it were as simple as parking, I think we'd be having a different conversation over there. But,
one of the things we take a lot of pressure off Cambridge Street is that Charles for two-way for bikes. Charleston Street outside the scope of this. It's a 5-lane road, it doesn't need to be 5 lanes. If we take one and made it a 2-way, it would take a lot of the pressure off and probably save a lot.
Thanks, Sean.
Is anyone else ready to go?
One quick question. Jay Walsh, from the Downtown North Association. First off, they don't really care what I'm saying.
You guys can.
Jay Walsh from the Downtown North Association. I want to start off by saying thank you for all the work that you guys have done. You guys have done a tremendous amount of work, which is a small area. You've done, a huge scope of work. So thank you for that. Just getting back to the Bulfinch triangle directional changes. I know you mentioned timing on some of these short-term, long-term, et cetera. What's the timing on that?
Well,
The anticipated timing, so look at
yeah.
Hi, I'm Bill Conroy from the Boston Transportation Department, and I want to thank everybody for their comments. I've been listening immensely over here. Direct answer to that is there's a lot of things going on here, as we know. We have the North Washington Street Bridge, which is going to be under construction. It's going to be reduced to its capacity, lane capacity. So if in fact we do make changes over here in this area, we'll have to keep that in mind, first of all. That being said, it's a big push to maybe open Canal Street up to some pedestrians, different events. That's during the summertime or maybe springtime, give it a try. So all these things aren't set in stone. It's really just changing the direction of the street. Make the street one way, doesn't work, you can always change it. You know what I mean? As far as the special events, I have to defer to the Boston Police Department and my office as well, which controls that. I heard a lot of concerns about residents not being able to get back to their establishment. That does concern me. I'll bring that back to the commissioner. We'll try to vet that and see what's going on over there with Captain Fullon. There's got to be some remedy to help people to get back to their establishment. As far as, there was one question out there as far as what the mayor said about preemptive signals. I think some people heard that at the State of the City address last night. He was referring to all modes of transportation as well, but what we're talking about is corridors, maybe like Harrison Avenue, Tremont Street, at different times where cars might be flowing in one direction and they're stopped because there's no traffic coming from a side street. And once these signals are up to speed, you need them on pretty much the whole corridor. So each corridor would be looked at individually. And also that would be for bikes. As we know, we have the Harrison-Albany. Right now we're doing Harrison-Albany cycle track, two-way traveler over the south end. That's going to have a cycle track that'll have bike signals. So all these things are being upgraded. So when we pick these different modes, we're not just trying to signal out to move cars along. We have a congestion problem here. Causeway Street was a nightmare. I think everybody can agree. It's not only during a special event, it's also during, the morning AM and PM rush. So we're trying to bring some conformity to the shuttles. When the shuttles go on to Canal Street, make a loop to Beverly Street, that may work, it may not work. These are just ideas we're trying to explore. We're trying to get some TMA in the area to help out with that. My vision is to probably get someone on the ground there, TMA participating in that, meaning they would be controlling the shuttle, someone will be out there on a daily basis. We're talking about the hubway itself. There's not enough bikes basically on the hubway. What we heard from people were they're coming into the city on trains. The millennials, they're looking for a hubway. There's no bikes there. So we're trying to build up another corral. Maybe we'll get some more bikes over on Causeway Street to get people to the Seaport district, because if they don't have a bike there, they don't get on the shuttle, they call an Uber, which adds to more traffic problems. So we're looking at all these things, and some gentlemen mentioned the North Station, South Station link. I was all for it. I wish we built that during the big dig. I mean, I wish that happened. Maybe subliminally there might be a monorail service or something that went down the Greenway. There was all types of ideas that have been invented, but as far as that connection, maybe we envision coming from Causeway Street to Merrimack to Congress Street, using that as a BRT lane or a shuttle lane to get people all the way up into the Seaport. Maybe that's used during the winter time, and then we defer to maybe the water shuttle taxi in the summertime. But that, we need cooperation from the people in the Seaport too, all the big companies over there as well, because they subsidize their employees, they subsidize them with either shuttle service or water taxi. We've heard that some people defer to the shuttle because it's cheaper as opposed to the water taxi. So that's something we need to explore as well. So I just wanted to address, I don't know what addressed everybody's comment, but we hear you, and we're just trying to do the best we can. And also the woman at the Amy Moore House, I remember that meeting a long time ago. That was back, I think we had the city council hearing, I think it was November 14th of 14, I think, maybe it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. The Councilor Zinkham had the meeting up there. And with that being said, Pete referred to the intersection of Lamazia and Martha. We're working with the garden developer there, and hopefully there may be some way to eliminate the signal at Nashua coming into Martha, where traffic can flow freely directly up Lamazia into Nashua Street. But we have to explore that. We don't have the right of way right now, so that's something we're looking into though at this point in time. And with that right of way, we would probably add at that point a cycle track or some protected bike lane to get people up to the river as well.
And just to follow up to my question about the timing of it is, as the folks from the Strata mentioned, the garden is in season for the Celtics, and you can get a more accurate depiction of whether or not something will work. So if there is going to be a trial run, I would just suggest March or April, just to,
right.
And if you do it in June, July, you might get a much different picture than you would in the months when they're in season.
Right, and with that, we wouldn't do anything without going out to you with that plan. So that plan would be vetted to everybody, and we may say it might be a pilot grant, it might be some type of thing we want to try. We'll see how it works, and then we'll get more feedback back, and if it's not working, then we go to plan B.
For North Washington Street, if you're going to do a dedicated bus lane on the southbound side, is that going to eliminate the meter charging?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I asked it the same when they showed me the slides. That's why we didn't show that slide.
Bill, you might repeat.
She was talking about the bus lane that's going to, we have an idea of extending the BRT from the Washington Street Bridge all the way down North Washington Street to Haymarket. We believe this probably where we have to look from an engineering perspective we have enough capacity in that to keep the parking as well as the BRT, as well as the travel lane. We have to look at it. So we haven't explored or invented it that far right now, but it's definitely an idea. And the timing on these things is, some of the things are sooner, some of the things are later, but obviously we're not going to do something stupid and take capacity out of North Washington Street if we only have one lane in each direction on the bridge. We have to look at this thing, I think it's it's one step at a time.
So I'd like to hit that Cambridge Street nail just one more time. I understand that there are issues with, it's not as easy as just removing lane of parking. There are utilities or things like that. I would suggest considering that that's a choke point. Basically, if you actually watch the traffic on Cambridge Street, it's not moving quickly. Cambridge Street is a big buffer that's absorbing a wealth of cars, and that allows the cars to get off other streets. But the actual throughput through Cambridge Street is quite low. You could do an engineering study as soon as tomorrow, where an engineer went out and at each construction point put a cone to force the cars around it, and you could observe whether the actual flow past Storrow Drive, because that's ultimately the gateway, is the flow past Storrow Drive around Longfellow Bridge. If that continues to flow at the same rate, then it is actually feasible with paint and with bollards to give this bike lane that the other attendees today have pointed out is a necessary element, is a critical element, and it's a promised element. We can start working toward that immediately with possibly, and a study would be required, but possibly without impacting traffic flow at all. A 0% impact on traffic flow, only cost of parking. That seems worthwhile for saving lives.
And I agree, saving lives, and I agree with the Vision Zero. Charlotte Fleetwood heads that up in my department. Stephanie Seskin for bikes. I mean, this is something that we as a department are looking at as a whole on Cambridge Street. And I agree that free movement. We don't process a lot of traffic through Charles Circle. Basically, once you hit say, New Chardon Street to Sudbury, that spreads out, traffic is released. So, but we do have the neck downs there, we do have that. It wasn't built too long ago, but that doesn't mean we can't do something out there. So it is being looked at, and yeah, if you remove the parking, or there was a neck down there, or you do a trial basis, take a lane, I don't know. But it's being looked at in-house, and I know that Stephen Muse from my department looked at it, and it looked as though if we maybe reducing traffic lanes to 11, I don't even know if you went down to 10 and a half. This is just schematic in nature to see if we can even get a bike lane itself on there and some protected bike lane. But it is being vetted. We do hear your concern. We hear Liverpool Street's concern, and we'll bring it back. We'll still work through it. It's just one of those things that it wasn't right out there for us in the study, and that's the more we talked about it was. And my focus, I can say, was Blossom Street. Blossom Street, some woman got killed up there. Going around the turn, back near Fruit Street, crossing the street. I mean, not Fruit, but when you go Blossom and you go over to Charles River Park, someone was hit and killed over there. So obviously, we're going to tighten that street up. I mean, even though it might be used as a circuit breaker, I'm not a big fan of that. And a lot of people travel that street. So that's one of our short points, that either we get that out the door as quickly as possible. We can use some paint, striping, want to raise some crossings there and get that, for pedestrians, to protect pedestrians that are in that area. So you have my word, we are looking at it. And Liverpool Street, you can take that back to Glenn and everybody else. Okay?